Here we are, another video, another reading in the series of Molasses Moon. This is my homepage carousel on Kindle Fire. Where we left off, the last video was number 39. Of course, as I've mentioned before, the correct sequence in the videos will always be in the titles. I'm doing this one also in a special cycle using an astrological timing related to my chart and to the peak of the full moon, and it just peaked about 3 or 4 minutes ago, going from the peak of the gibbous moon ruled by Saturn, which is right now just stationary retrograde, and we are now into the official full moon, which is ruled by Mercury. And at this time, Mercury is what's called combust the sun, which means it's right lined up in front of the sun from our perspective. And likely none of this will mean anything to you, and I won't explain the details. I just wanted to tag, I guess, the fact that I'm testing a couple of cycles here with 2 uploads today and with doing a recording also today, all related to this series of Molasses Moon. So before I start reading the next sequence, I wanted to at least establish that part, and I'll show the Kindle again. And the reason I'm doing this each time is just in case someone watches only one video and I want to give them a chance at least to see what's going on. And it can be read, of course, like most electronic devices, vertically or horizontally. And it has its own little stand. Now I've turned it over, so it's setting on the stand, and you can move it forward or backward, depending on what angle you want to have it for reading. You can push it all the way down, almost flat, onto the stand. Okay, I guess that's enough for the logistics, and I'll just go ahead and do my thing on the reading. I noticed yesterday it was the first time for quite a while that my view was the only one on the one that I uploaded. Of course, that wouldn't have been yesterday. That was number 28. And so I wasn't sure if I had done something in 27 that turned everybody off, or if everybody got busy all of a sudden with the full moon peaking, or what it was. I didn't put very many tags. That's something else kind of interesting to watch. The kind of tags you use will make a difference. There are certain tags that are really popular that draw a lot of interest. And no matter what, you have to try to match the tags to the appeal of what you're doing. But it's kind of fun to experiment with all this. And I want to also say that I hope people would want to have a copy of this book as well as listen to the videos. And even if you do have a copy, I hope that you might also watch some of the videos, since I'm doing, like right now, I'm adding a lot from the present in 2012, the first part of this year. And today is February 7th. It's also a significant date for me because of a couple of my favorite aunts and uncles and significant events. And it kind of fits with what I am working on too with my life and my work. February 7th was my Uncle Charlie's birthday, and Anna Mae, his wife, was one of the first people in my family to actually buy a Kindle just for the purpose of reading my books. And she read Molasses Moon first. And this had been the second time. She read it the first time with her husband Charlie, who is her soulmate and who passed away. And it's interesting, he is a Rocchio, the youngest of the Rocchio family, of my grandmother's children. She had 10. And my Aunt Mary was the oldest of the girls. There were 3 girls and 7 boys. And my Aunt Mary died on February 7th. But to me, as difficult as death is for us when we lose someone, you lose them in one sense, you gain more from them in another sense, as their spirit grows brighter and is free. So this is a special day and a special cycle in many ways. But with that said, at least that tags it for me also in my memories. Thank you also, Charlie and Anna Mae, for reading the manuscript of Molasses Moon, and then Anna Mae for getting a Kindle along with their sister Catherine, and now their sister Mary Louise is also going to begin reading my books. So I really feel honored. Okay, so I left off. Oh yeah, my favorite scene, the moonlight on the prairie at dusk with Tara, out on the railroad grade behind in the prairies, a few miles from Rockville. It's really beautiful there. Okay, so we're starting with chapter 23 now, the value of low profile. I just remembered something. Why I keep a low profile. Why I'm a hermit, a recluse, an antisocial witch. Why no one wants to read my work. And remember, I'm writing this back in 1994. I've worked to hide the fact that I'm still, yes, still, struggling in the publishing game. Several years ago, once I realized how long and hard the effort to win this game would be, I decided to avoid talking about my work or showing it to anyone. I tried to make my effort invisible. I had several reasons. The main one was, no matter how hard I tried to explain it, no one seemed to understand the publishing game, unless they were a major player in the major markets. I couldn't communicate because there was no foundation upon which to begin. Few understood that publishing and printing are not the same thing. Few understood the specialization of different houses with a capital H and editors, i.e. their lists being limited to either fiction or nonfiction, or romance, horror, etc. Few understood literary categories at all. Few understood the unique marketing and distribution techniques of the publishing industry. As an aside from 2012, Realize, too, publishing has an extremely powerful control on what goes into people's minds in the most intimate way through reading books, and especially through reading fiction, as I've mentioned before. That goes into the back door of the mind, and it might be more powerful than anything that is presented in a direct fashion. Probably no one understands an editor's list, even the editor himself. Oh, povero mia. No one understands me. Sob, sob. Oh boy, I'm a good sob story. Except that whenever you lose my sense of humor for very long. And as Anna May said, she likes somebody who pokes fun at herself and laughs at herself. I like it too, mostly because it keeps me going and it heals a lot of pain. It releases a lot of poison. Heck, Marge didn't even know exactly what a novel was. I didn't either until I had become a certified English teacher. But my mom was always smart enough to ask. I told her it was a long story. She wasn't alone in not knowing. Even people who read voraciously lack understanding of literary categories, publishing specialization, etc. Bookstore managers and owners were blank-faced when I tried to explain the game. I tried to define terms to highly educated, intelligent people and couldn't bridge the gap. The hardest thing to explain was what I learned from the publication, in quotes, of The Rose and the Pyramid. And I'm not going to try here. I did that in Full Moon and New Moon. In addition to not being able to bridge a gap of the industry's idiosyncrasies, I was invariably met with advice. In spite of the fact that the advisor didn't know square one about the game. We all do that. I'm good at it too. That was from the president 2012. That's natural enough. As soon as you sound like you're complaining about the hard time you're having winning, the listener jumps right in, all 4 feet kicking and karate chopping, telling you what you're doing wrong. Hasn't anyone ever read The 1-Minute Manager? Catch him in the act of doing something right? You're writing the wrong books, the advisor said. You should send them to the publisher in Denver, which in quotes a printer, writer, photographer who does his own writing, takes his own pictures, and prints only photographic essays on railroads. You have to be famous to get a book published. You have to be doing something wrong, or you would be on the bestseller list already. Your writing is too literary. Your writing is too simple. Your writing is over my head. You don't have enough philosophy. I like philosophy. You don't have enough blood and guts. Your main character is a female. You have to have heroes, not heroines, unless you're writing a romance. And on. If you haven't made it by now, you should quit and go get a regular job with a paycheck. Most people who've considered being a writer never got started actually writing even a letter. Some do write a few poems. One woman I knew who did write a whole book sent it out once. It was returned. As most people would, she accepted that rejection as proof that her book was no good. From 2012, I guess that tells you how hard of a head I have. Most currently successful authors of fiction worked several years, full-time, before getting a first manuscript published. And it was easier in the past than it is now to get established in fiction. And not only was that true from 1994 perspective, it's more true now, except that now we have Kindle, KDP, and a new program called Select. Okay. It might be impossible at this point. At that point at 1994 and up until Kindle KDP really got rolling, probably in more than 99.9% of the time, it was impossible. Back to the book. But I'm not quitting, even if it is impossible. I told you that. Then, of course, there's the person who just knows you're starving for material. Then he has the story you should write. He's going to tell you about it one way or another. Do you wonder why I'm a recluse? Then there's the other side. Some people hurt with you. You don't want to put them through the pain for that long. A few years ago, I began talking less and less about my frustrations or even my ideas with Tom and my mom. It gets old and too painful after a while, and they both hate repetition. My nephew Lonnie has been the main person I talk with about career efforts when he's around, since he reads and writes too. His Marine Corps experience has made him enduring of a long effort before a gain is made. In parentheses, all four of my nephews have been interested in my books, bless them. Lonnie's the only one living here now, though. That was in '94. But when I started writing Molasses, a non-fiction manuscript with a greater chance for success, supposedly, than my previous fiction works, I forgot my self-imposed silence, my low profile. Exuberance took over. I forgot why I had gone to ground before. And I began again indiscriminately sharing my efforts, and was reminded why it's better to hide until someone seeks you. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Few people want to talk about or hear anything other than their own interests, dogs, cats, and kids. I don't blame them. I understand how boring it is to listen to someone go on and on about their turnip patch when you hate turnips and have never gotten into the varieties, the various types and consistencies of dirt. I've learned that the best way to relate to people is on their terms and in their worlds. I said that in chapter 6 when I was trying to get Tom interested in my latest slippery eel. This is somewhat what Jeff Herman's good advice suggests. In quotes, remember the customer. I could add, and take your cue there. And this reminds me also of Jeff Bezos. And he made an excellent video on why his business is customer-centric and how that has made him go as far as he has, if you want to put it in those terms. But it's better to keep it short and simple, so I'll forget the customer and just say, take your cue. There's a time when the interest in my work will be there. I have to work toward that time. Maybe even create it somewhat, or somehow. So, I have to wait and watch for my cues, then take them And if they don't come, I have to create them. That's sort of what mini queries do. At least they should. So I'm working with two things. The universal timing, keying from planetary motion clockwork. That's sort of what I did today, and I'm going to do again now on the other side of the moon, from going from gibbous to full. Actually, the full moon is when the moon begins its waning phase again. The gibbous moon is the waxing phase and completes that. And my own efforts at creating my cues. You'll note I've gradually moved away from explaining why I'm a recluse. There's more to it, but you've got the basics, and I won't bore you going on and on right now. I have bigger fish to fry. In olive oil with lemon, lime, garlic, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Cues and qualms. They're the bigger fish. The goad has come. So I'll take my first cue and take a break. Cake and iced tea. Walnut pecan and mint is still on the menu. Sorry, I just took a cue with priority over the one for the break. Going back downstairs, I went back to the beginning. Before going downstairs, I went back to the beginning of this chapter to revise. Now, I can go get my cake and eat it too. Aunt Mary, this was your day of freedom. Bless your heart and your soul that's now free and strong again, and with Charlie and all the other elder Rocchios are together again. Bless all of you, mia familia. It's a good stopping point for today. Video number 40 in Reading-Molasses Moon. Without this little device and the other Kindles, I probably wouldn't be reading this on video, because I wouldn't do it without having a book in print. Who knows what I'd do or wouldn't do, but that's how I feel now. Maybe another day I should show you the other Kindles too, with Molasses Moon on them, and to see how they look in different ones. So for now, again, farewell.